We also promote Commissioner Kilcup. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to call the Planning Commission regular hybrid meeting to order at 7:05 on Monday, October 2nd, 2023. And first I'll do the roll call. Vice Chair Tessman.
Present.
Commissioner Aliff.
Present.
Commissioner Kilcup. See you there. Okay,
Did you not hear me?
yeah, I got you now.
Sorry.
Good. Commissioner Crone.
Present.
Commissioner Lambert. And Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Okay, did staff receive any communication from Commissioner Lambert saying he would be absent? Yeah, I haven't either. At this point, I'd move that we consider Commissioner Lambert unexcused absent. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So one absence, Commissioner Lambert unexcused. At this point, are there any public comments? I'm sorry. First, can I get a motion? Let me rephrase. I move that we approve the agenda for October 2nd, 2023 as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, are there any public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the council liaison report. I saw Council Member Johnson here just a minute
Just
ago.
stepped away.
I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for him to come back, let me hold that and let me move to approve the minutes dated September 18th, 2023. There's one thing. Yeah, there's one little tweak that I had. If you look at other business planning commission interest, where it says YMCA public access, I believe that was public access to the pool. Not just general, because YMCA's got members.
That's right.
Yeah. So if we could amend that. Yeah. So if we could amend that as YMCA public access to the pool, then I move that we approve the minutes dated September 18th, 2023 as amended. Can I get a second?
Oh, Commissioner,
Yes.
I think that since there will be a pool associated with the YMCA, we might want to stick to splash pad for the language.
Well, we did get clarification last meeting that the splash pad definitely is yeah. Full public access. It's really just the pool expansion at the YMCA.
Are we asking about the pool?
I was.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my apologies.
No worries.
Right. Yeah, because you can't go in and just work out without being a Y member. So the question is, would this pool, would we have public access to the pool? Okay. Anyway, so I move that we approve the minutes dated September 18th, 2023 as amended. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes dated September 18th are approved. And now we'd like to move on to the council liaison report.
Righty, perfect timing. So let me see here. Okay, so I've got just a couple of things here to update the committee on. The first thing was that last week we got to do the ribbon cutting for the new parkway, now that it's all been repaired and replaced and repaved, and it's all done apart from the striping, which it is really beautiful the way that it looks now. I know some of the traffic was rather frustrating, but the benefit that we're going to get out of having that beautiful road is immeasurable. So we got to go to the ribbon cutting. Our legislators, Lisa Callan, Bill Ramos, and Mark Mullet were there for it. And then we went and took a tour of the pool and not the pool, I'm sorry, of the community center. And we presented the concepts for the pool and the rest of the community center expansion to them so that they got kind of a lay of the land. They got to see what facilities we do have and the facilities that we're lacking that a community of our size really needs. So that was great. The council also approved the sidewalk repair and replace program for this next year. I think that it's probably too late to add new spots to it, given that we approved the contract. But that said, you could always reach out to the streets division, say, hey, do you think you could tack on mine? And maybe they can, maybe they can't. But that should be done over the next few months. Apparently, they're going to put up tents over the spots where they're working so that they can work through the winter, which is awesome, or at least through the fall. I don't know when it's snowing or not, but at least for the next few months, and it'll actually hopefully be done by the spring. Let's see, the other things with regard to the accessory dwelling unit regulations, we had the first reading for that at our last council meeting. It didn't seem like there was very stiff opposition, so I anticipate that there's a good chance that that will pass at our next council meeting. So kudos to the Planning Commission for your hard work on that, making our work much easier when it gets to the council. And I think that that was about it that I wanted to update. Oh, the other thing was we did officially designate the mill site as a site for receiving the multifamily property tax exemption for the affordable housing. So that section is done. We do have some code amendments that are working their way through the council right now related to MFTE. Also, I would anticipate it has a high likelihood of passing at the next council meeting since we did the first reading, but you never know until it actually passes. So with that, I'll take any questions from the committee because that's all I've got.
All right, let me just do a quick roundtable to make sure I don't miss anything. Vice Chair Tessman?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Aliff?
Just one question. What are the property taxes that are exempted as part of the mill site thing?
So getting into the details here, I do believe that it is the I believe that the school taxes is part of it, education. Not sure what other exact taxes they are. I'll defer to Community Development Director Arteche to see if you know anything else specifically.
Well, we only have school impact fees. Are you talking
Okay,
about
so it's only
impact
school.
fees?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, so it is just school.
just for the portion that would be affordable.
Right.
Yeah. So
Just for the affordable units, not for the entire property. Is that correct?
correct. Yeah.
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 Okay.
I just wanted, because it came up here a few meetings ago, that when we exempt that, that means we are effectively passing the cost onto the school district.
Right. Well, it's not a ton of units. So it isn't free, right? Nothing's free. But you know, it's also not a whole lot of units that's going to bankrupt the district. So, you know, it's kind of a cost benefit analysis. Is it better to have housing for these kids so that they aren't living in their cars, or you know, and as a result, maybe the school district doesn't quite get as much money as they otherwise would. So that's kind of the trade-off.
Yeah, everything comes costs. Just realize we're passing the cost onto the school district in this case.
Yep, that's exactly right. And for affordable housing, it's one of those trade-offs that given our need, that I'm willing to make.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Aliff?
One more, I'll beat this point to death. I also followed up with Assistant Superintendent Stokes, who is the head of finance at the school district. He gave me the information that the density on Panorama for students in the school district was roughly twice what we see for typical residential student developments, which means that when we make housing affordable, it's frequently filled with families, which is the one that also consume resources.
Yeah.
For the school district. So even though it's fewer units, it actually might be a disproportionate number of students.
Yeah, that certainly could be.
Interesting. Anything else, Commissioner Aliff?
That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Kilcup?
I just had one point of clarification on the MFTE.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with exactly what was written for the mill site, but it's my experience that typically the MFTE tax exemption is for all of the multifamily if there is a number of affordable units provided.
No,
All right.
Okay, it's only on the affordable units?
I believe that that's correct.
correct.
Okay.
We can go back and double check though.
Okay. Commissioner Kilcup, anything else?
Nothing more.
Commissioner Crone,
Nothing for me. Thanks.
Commissioner Smith?
No, that was, it's interesting, but no specific questions at this time. Nothing about that.
Okay, I have two questions. You mentioned that there was not stiff opposition to the ADU. I wondered why the qualifier. Was there opposition at all?
No.
Okay. Second question. When it comes to affordable housing, is there any thought to the utilities? Cost of utilities, is that baked in anywhere?
I mean, it really comes down to the fact that you got to provide the utilities. So again, someone's got to pay for it. And as to what proportion is paid by, say, residents of an apartment complex, for example, that's going to come down to the specifics of that particular development and whoever the property manager is. So it's something that is always a consideration. It's just, is there the money to do something about it? When I was living in an arch home, I was somewhat shocked to see what our HOA dues were. Didn't seem much on the affordable side to me. It seemed rather on the luxury end of things, but you know, still the cost of the housing itself was still less than market. So that's the best I can give you on that.
No, fair enough. I mean, to put it bluntly, you could afford a house and utilities could make it unaffordable.
Yes.
The way they're going right now. Yeah.
That
Okay.
that can happen, and it's something that we could try to do something about, but as was pointed out earlier, money's got to come from somewhere.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Anything? Okay, thank you.
All right, great, thank you.
At this point, are there any permit review / design review items? Okay. And then we move into the legislative policy items, economic development element goals and policy recommendation.
Yes, we have our planning technician, Ashley Ragg, who will come up and give you a brief update on the EDC's revised policy.
All right, so the revised policy is being inserted under the first goal, and it is now I. Support the preservation and occupancy of key historic landmarks downtown, including full-service restaurants.
Okay,
That was the only additional comment that they made.
okay. The last comment, was that on there before? Because I saw at the end of the last one, L, the very last one, yeah. Was that on there previously?
That was on there previously.
All right. I have no objection sending this forward, as Commissioner Aliff mentioned a few meetings ago. This is very thorough I just wanted to kind of highlight that it'd be nice to have a few must-see things here, but I think we've got that covered. But just to be thorough, I will poll the commission one last time if they have any questions for you. Vice Chair Tessman,
No, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Aliff,
No questions. Thanks.
Commissioner Kilcup,
No questions.
Commissioner Crone,
No questions.
Mr. Smith.
No, I read through this and I think it looks thorough from what we discussed.
Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you. And thank
you.
the EDC for us as well. Okay, at this point, we'll move on to the third agenda item, housing element goals and policy recommendations. I think they are attendees now. I think they need to be promoted.
Yes, Commissioner, Commissioner Maruziak or Chair Maruziak, we have LDC consultants available to provide you an update on the housing element from last meeting. Thomas, are you leading this discussion?
I cannot hear.
We did just have to join in again, so he might be here in a second.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
I can see him talking, but I can't hear anything. Yes, you. Yes.
Thomas, are you muted by any chance?
He's not,
Hmm. Hmm.
but he is silent.
Says 1 minute. He's going to use his, there we go. Thank you. Forgot to plug his headset in.
All right, can everybody hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome. Welcome.
Sorry about that, guys. I thought I had it all set up, but I didn't.
You're great.
But what I was saying while muted, my name is Thomas Carter, Associate Planner here with LDC. I will be presenting the revised draft policies, or the rest of them. Last meeting, we went over a majority of the housing policies, and so these are going to be the revised policies that we tweaked based off of the commission's suggestion and input. I'll go ahead and get this set up real quick. Let me share my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Everyone's cool. So again, we're going over the revised draft policies today.
We see both your screens, by the way.
Oh,
Your
well,
screen as well. I don't know if you want to.
you get it all today. You get it all today.
That's fine.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if I think a couple of you are familiar with the color coding we did, but real quick, what we did is we color coded some of the House bills and reports done for Snoqualmie, and we went through the revised draft policies and highlighted the sections of those draft policies that were influenced by the House bills and also the reports. And so you'll see this little box on the top right corner that'll correspond with which House bill or which reports or analysis we have done. Next page. So real quick, I realize my color coding for the revised policy might be a little bit confusing with the analysis we did for the middle housing stuff. So just to clarify, the top portion in black text, that is the policy we presented last week or 2 weeks ago. And then the color coding on that will be the corresponding House bill or report. And then the revised policy under that, on the red text, will be, of course, the revised policy. And then I highlighted the sections of that revised policy that we changed based on suggestions. So first policy we have here. Oh, and what I'll do is I'll go through the proposed draft policy. I'll go through the revised draft policy. Then I'll pause for any input. So first we got lower the cost of daily housing expenses by raising public awareness on green housing renovation options and energy conservation practices. And we revised that policy to say promote and raise public awareness of options for lowering daily housing expenses, available tax incentives for green housing renovations, and energy conversation? Probably got to change that. Energy conservation practices. Probably got to change that one. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So that's what we got here. I realized that did sound a little bit clunky, reading it back and forth a little bit. So to this right over here, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. I did make a proposed edit for promote and enhance public awareness regarding opportunities for reducing daily housing costs, as well as benefits of green housing renovations and energy conservation practices supported by tax incentives. So that's the change I made recently to make it sound less clunky.
And Thomas, just correct me if I'm wrong, but some of that came from some feedback we got from the Snoqualmie tribe. Yeah, so we're
actually not this policy. We have another slide at the end that will have those suggestions.
Yeah, some additional information was coming in as we were making these fine-tuning lists from the last meeting.
Any input, suggestions, notes?
Well, one thing, I just want to make sure we're being precise and not redundant.
Yes.
I guess my question focuses on opportunities for reducing daily housing costs. So is that all, is really the way that the public can potentially reduce their housing costs through the green housing renovations and the energy conservation and any tax incentives, or is there something else out there that will ultimately educate them on and will be available to them that can actually reduce their daily costs? Because if so, I would just say, hey, make it promote and enhance public awareness regarding opportunities for green housing renovations, energy conservation, and available tax incentives.
So it's more of just make sure that people know that the options are available. Yes, for the green housing renovations and energy conservation practices, I think that's something we can promote, and that's easily promotable in a way. But people don't know necessarily the tax incentives involved with that. People just say, like, when you tell people, oh, you can lower your daily housing expenses, not a lot of people really they're like, okay, yeah, sure, but they know they're getting something from it, then something a little bit more tangible, and might kind of make that connection a little bit more. So that was my thought process behind it.
Yeah.
But strike me down if you if you feel different.
If that's the case, I'd recommend just saying something to the effect of, so promote and enhance public awareness regarding opportunities for reducing, let me see. I'm like thinking and talking out loud, but long story short, for reducing daily housing costs. Well, okay, so you're saying two things here.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to reduce your costs through these mechanisms, and outside of the financial impact, there are benefits to them, right? And so you want the public to be aware of both. So if that's the essence of what you're saying, I'd say keep it as is, and say make that as well as the benefits a clause. Maybe put a comma after the benefits. Otherwise, if the focus really is just the financial impact, I'd say I just say opportunities for reducing daily housing costs through green housing renovation and energy conservation programs and other tax incentives or something like that. Maybe it's just me.
Actually, I really like that. The first portion you said, as well as benefits.
Yeah, just making it a clause. Yeah, exactly.
Benefits associated.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Oh yeah, that's real helpful. Thank you.
Can I ask a question as well?
Okay, say that one more time. Sorry, I didn't
May I
hear
ask
that.
a question? Sorry, my mic doesn't always want to pick up. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit
Okay.
better.
Is the first half of this sentence directed towards like using LED lights and those types of things? Or are we focusing on green housing, like renovation?
I mean, the way I understood it is like you have those like LEDs; those are going to be more efficient housing wise, and yeah, you're going to reduce your electric bill. So that's one part of it. And then also when you do decide to do renovations, some of the like solar panels, some of the, you know, more energy efficient ways of conserving energy and also using it. So that's the way I separated it out. It was like the daily usage, like yeah, LED lights, that works. But if you were to renovate your house, also consider these are ways you can also reduce that energy cost and impact. And then on top of that, other energy conservation methods as well.
Okay.
Like even switching from like a water heater to tankless systems or a heat pump or
Right.
yeah, any of that stuff.
Well, would it be better suited if these were just two separate policies?
Or
You know.
sentences?
Well, I mean, you could just do one as promote and enhance public awareness, you know, and then you could do another one of, I'm not sure what it would start with, but something about, you know, use of green housing renovations and energy conservation practices.
I mean, yeah, I mean, actually, I think that's a really good idea. We can definitely do that.
What's the first one then? I mean, if it's not public awareness of green housing, then how do you lower the cost then?
Let's see.
That was the only way to do that. You're gonna lower the cost by raising public awareness of the green housing options, right?
Well,
I think the intent is
Okay.
to get the ideas out there that there are options that might not be more expensive and meet green or like energy saving or whatever, you know, whatever systems are in place, but it might not necessarily be more cost prohibitive than people expect. So I think the point of this policy would be is more geared toward the like creation of maybe some like public pamphlets or flyers, or it's more I think about getting the information out there as opposed to you know calling out specific examples in this policy, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think this could, I mean, if you guys would like this to be split into two, I think that's definitely an option. But open to suggestions.
I feel like it might be more clear if
Yeah.
it were two, because as I'm reading that, I wasn't sure if the first portion is talking about sort of simple strategies that you can do in your home to reduce your consumption and therefore reduce your cost.
Yeah.
And then the second is more of a top-down strategy of solar panels and the waterless or tankless water heater and those things.
Well, I see.
Totally.
Yeah, let's go ahead and split it in two if there's no objection.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then, yeah, splitting it between kind of like day-to-day cost savings in green, like things that individuals can do on a per home basis without having to do any like new construction or anything. And then the renovation side is its own policy.
Yeah, sounds good to me. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next policy. Next policy, the draft policy we presented was consider exempting affordable housing types from FAR regulations and adding a minimum density where those housing types are allowed. we got the suggestion of actually spelling out floor area ratio. And we changed it to consider making affordable housing types. Did somebody say something? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, keep going.
Okay, cool. Consider making affordable housing types exempt from floor area ratios, FAR regulations, and adding minimum densities to areas where affordable housing is allowed.
I'm okay with that. Any comments?
I like that.
Yes.
Man, okay.
All right. Going once, going twice, and on to the next one. All right, so next one here. The original proposed draft policy was to the maximum extent feasible, require affordable housing to be provided in new mixed use, planned residential, and innovative development district projects that include an appropriate mix of rental and owner occupied units that are made available to people with low, very low, and extremely low incomes. We changed the appropriate mix to just a general mix. It so reads, to the maximum extent feasible, require affordable housing to be provided in new mixed use, planned residential, and innovative development district projects that include a mix of rental and owner occupied units that are made available to people with low, very low, and extremely low incomes.
Yeah, okay. Any comments?
All right, all right. And then this next slide actually has some comments from the Snoqualmie tribe that we implemented. So I'll go ahead and break those down. So we have support the local workforce, which includes educational employees, first responders, retail clerks, casino employees with housing. We revise casino employees to hospitality. So it reads, support the local workforce, which includes educational employees, first responders, retail clerks, hospitality employees with housing.
Good.
That's better.
Yeah.
All right. And then the next thing we changed is we changed the support to promote. So the original proposed draft policy was support the use of high quality, durable, and low maintenance building materials, high efficiency energy systems, and environmentally responsible building principles in all new housing and renovation projects to reduce housing operation and maintenance costs, energy use, and impact on natural resources. And the revised policy reads, promote the use of high quality, durable, and low maintenance building materials, high efficiency energy systems, and environmentally responsible building principles in all new housing and renovation projects to reduce housing operation and maintenance costs, energy use, and impact on natural resources. Cool.
Good.
I'm gonna give like 5 more seconds because this is our last slide.
These are good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. And that is all we wrote so far. So thank you for the suggestions. We'll go ahead and split those two policies, that one policy earlier in the slides regarding the energy conservation and lowering energy cost. And we'll go ahead and send this to you as soon as we can.
Okay, so we should see these before the next meeting, or?
They'll probably go forward as a recommendation for your signature,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
like we've done with the economic development and the land use element.
okay, and then I'll summarize and make sure that the full commission has a copy of what I sign and what the summary is, and then we'll present it to the CD. Is that the plan?
Yep, just like you
Okay.
did before.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys for taking the time. Thank you for meeting with me. And that's all, folks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Talk.
you.
Okay, at
Bye.
this.
Oh, What's going on? Are we
Oh,
good?
so I think I was praising the fact that my camera started working verbally. Sorry.
No worries. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. At this point, we move on to the fourth agenda item, transportation element introduction.
Correct. We have a new element as we steamroll through the total amount of elements that we're going to be working on. This new element is the transportation element. It is packed full of some technical information, GMA and Vision 2050 requirements. We have a wonderful new set of consultants to work with that are located across the street, Prateet. And Carla from Prateet is going to be presenting tonight the introduction of the transportation element. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Great.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Carla Boughton, and it is my pleasure tonight to be before you to give you an introduction to the transportation element of your upcoming comprehensive plan. And with me tonight, I have two other members of our Prateet team. We have Jennifer Gross, who will be presenting the existing condition slides in your PowerPoint, and then Peter Bacciuello, who is actually the project manager of our effort. Emily has us working on the transportation element and the environmental element, and we will be bringing forward the environmental element discussion in 2024. So Ashley is kind enough to pull up the PowerPoint that we have prepared for you, and I'll walk you through that. I think it's in your packet, so you've got a preview of it. So I will just present all of the concepts, and then we're happy to give you conversation and discussion and answer your questions. We'll also be back at your next Planning Commission meeting to walk through the goals and policies like you have been doing with LDC. So as Emily prompted us, the transportation element is one of the more robust elements, and the GMA, the Growth Management Act, actually has a lot to say about the transportation element as set forth here in the RCW, and that's language is summarized from the RCW, but there's a lot to it, and we can break it down though to that the transportation element must be consistent with the land use assumptions that you're using in your land use map, your land use element, and then now, in your housing element. So the land use assumptions must be used, which you will have heard as growth targets. So they're going to be the growth targets that you're using for land use must be also used for travel demand. We're going to need to do an existing conditions that's going to be presented to you tonight. A level of service standard must be established. Your comprehensive plan actually already does that. So when we worked on the forecast of traffic, we're going to be looking at your existing level of service, and we're going to be comparing the existing level of service with the forecast that's based on the growth targets. If the level of service is decreased in that calculation, we need to have some ideas of how we're bringing those facilities back up. And those ideas are actually capital improvement projects or travel demand management techniques. Then we have a financing analysis, 20-year and a 6-year, and then new, this comp plan update cycle is pedestrian and bicycle component or evaluation slide. So the transportation element, so those were the GMA requirements. The transportation element is actually one of only two elements, the capital facilities element is the other one, that has all the things. It has goals and policies. It's going to have capital facilities and financing strategy, and then it's going to have your maps and figures. So you're going to have a suite of maps, again, that we're going to go over tonight, existing conditions, but you're also going to have a suite of maps that establish your future conditions. Next slide. As Emily also prompted, not only do we have growth management, we must, of course, comply and be consistent with Vision 2050. I'm sure you've been working through that in your land use element, as well as your housing element. And so what consistency under Vision 2050, Puget Sound Regional Council, PSRC, the multi-county planning policies, And the important component to this is PSRC does do certification, and they specifically certify your transportation element. They're going to look at the whole comprehensive plan, but the actual requirement under the federal law is certification of a transportation element. So they do look in particular to each jurisdiction's transportation element. So we do have a higher standard under Vision 2050 and their certification requirement. So they're going to look at consistency with the regional growth strategy. They're going to really care about climate change, air quality, vehicle miles traveled provisions. These are all really new or more robust requirements that came out of Vision 2050. Transit-oriented development, again, that's the cornerstone of Vision 2050 strategy. And then under that, housing supplies and choices near transit. And one of the things that all jurisdictions that are under PSRC is works with their transportation staff, that when PSRC establishes the region-wide project list, if there's any projects on your list that rises to a level of regional significance, which there probably is, there needs to be consistency between your list and PSRC's list. Next slide. So here's a cute little graphic that I pulled from PSRC. It just shows you just graphically how they see all the things within the region. So it's transit, bike ped, freight, maintenance and preservation of your transportation system, technology, new technologies in vehicles, street and highways, and then aviations and ferries, which are, I don't believe, relevant to the city of Snoqualmie, but probably all the rest of those are. So when we think about the transportation element, we think of it not only in considering and evaluating and developing it for your local circumstances, it also has a role and a seat to play in the regional transportation system. Thank you. So just one last slide regarding the planning framework. So the regional transportation plan that PSRC has developed implements the land use plans and policies established under Vision 2050 at the regional level. Then we have our GMA requirements that are for the transportation element, actually implement your land use plan. And the coordination between planning and public works staff in developing the transportation element actually is a really good tool and technique to use to ensure long range goals are met. And that's because your public works department is going to be the one that's actually going to be building the capital projects at the end of all this planning effort. So the graphic there again is a PSRC graphic. It just kind of shows the nesting of how all the requirements are between Growth Management Act, Vision 2050, and then your local comprehensive plan. We just wanted to take a slide here to report to you, which you might have already seen, is some of the public comment that was received during your public engagement, which was earlier this year through your online open house, your open house and your online community survey. Some of these points might not be a surprise to any of you, but is something to keep in mind, especially as we're developing the goals and policies. So increased transit service accessibility, frequency, and destinations. That was actually the most common comment in your public input. And so you have the folks that participated in that want to be able to use transit and find it that it's not convenient for them. Snoqualmie Parkway speed, wear and tear signalization, that there might be some resolution that has come the truck and freight traffic, safety, increased volumes and congestions throughout the city, street, sidewalks, and bridge conditions. So again, that kind of falls under the same, maintenance concerns, bike paths in town, and connecting to North Bend and Issaquah were some of the destinations that were pointed out in the public feedback. And then finally, just general concern about, will the existing infrastructure be able to support the increased growth, your growth target? So the transportation element and what Petite is on contract to do for the city is to do all of these things. We will develop goals and policies. Again, we'll be back before you in 2 weeks to start that discussion. We're going to do an inventory, which we'll be presenting to you tonight. We have a level of service analysis that we are actually underway on. Forecast of traffic based on the land use and growth projections. The financing analysis that we'll be working with the city on, and most likely your finance department, your city engineer, and then a pedestrian and bicycle component, which you actually already have a really great foundation in your current comprehensive plan. So it's not like starting from scratch. So we're gonna, again, like I said, we'll be back before you. So the goals and policies, we're gonna take the approach that's similar to LDC has with your housing and land use elements. We're gonna remove duplicative policies. Yeah, thank you. Consolidate policies whenever possible to improve clarity. We're going to revise it with any new requirements that we have under GMA or PSRC, or sorry, Vision 2050. We're going to use the PSRC and Commerce checklist to evaluate that, to determine as a gap analysis whether there's anything that we need to add to the policies based on input from those consistency checklists. And again, we'll be meeting with you in 2 weeks. So for the next series of slides, which are the maps, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer. She did create these maps and she'll be able to speak to them as well as any questions you might have.
Thank you, Carla. Yes, so the next few pages are going to be a series of maps of various different topics. Before we flip through each of these, and as I point out details, I'll give you a little bit of background as to where the data was sourced from. A few weeks ago, got in touch with Brendan Acker here at the city, and he was kind enough to share 2 data sets, one Snoqualmie roads and Snoqualmie trails. So the map you see up on the screen now is direct data from that Snoqualmie roads data set. And the colored portions of the roadway that you see are the functional classifications. So functional classifications you might already be familiar with, but has to do with almost everything that Carla just covered. These will be compared as your existing conditions with your growth targets, and then level of service analysis will be applied to those, so you know how they're performing. As you can tell, there are 4 different color distinctions under functional classifications. You have principal arterial, minor arterial, collector, and then other. So other is more of a local classification is what it's also called. So you might see that terminology later on. And we can move to the next one. So the next map that's showing is actually related to collision data. This data is from Washington State Department of Transportation. So after this slide, most of this information is going to be from King County, but we do have Washington Department of Transportation involved, and there'll be a couple of their slides that has Puget Sound Regional Council involved as well. So this collision map is showing the density of incidents over the past 5 years, was it? Or 18 to 22, so about 4 years of collision events. Of course, you can see the red is definitely more dense than the rest. Pretty obvious, those are major intersections on your arterials. So that makes and precludes a lot of sense there. And we can move to the next one. This is your collision data by location. So this is just a different way of looking at the data. It's just giving you an idea of how spread across each incident is. You can see them lining up on the arterials there, and give you an idea of what's also happening in a lot of your, towards your urban growth areas, a lot of your residential zones. And the next one. So the next few slides will have to do a lot with bicycles, pedestrians, the other type of multimodal transportation types. This one has to do with bikes. And a lot of this information came from the Puget Sound Regional Council. A little bit of, or most of the data is a little bit dated. So there is definitely opportunities for you guys to give feedback, the local type of experience and knowledge on these trails, the bikes, pedestrian, that if you see something on there, hey, I know that is or isn't a bike trail, definitely reach out and provide that kind of information. So like we've covered before, or just noted before, these are existing conditions. So this is existing data. You know, a lot could have changed over the past couple of years with projects that you have. So the next one is the pedestrian map. So unfortunately, there is very little information about the pedestrian routes you have in the city. So this information is also from Puget Sound Regional Council, and they only have data on your principal arterials. So this is mostly because this is your state and federal money source, and they keep that data along with their previous projects and that sort of thing. So there are a lot more pedestrian, obviously sidewalks and various roadways, you know, new projects, and a couple of other details, you know, where pedestrian routes spur off into other neighborhoods or that sort of thing. So there's a lot of inventory that could possibly be done here to get you more of a comprehensive understanding of where pedestrian sidewalks are. So your trails map, this is another data set that also came from you as a city. And looking at it, I can tell now on the screen that the colors are hard to distinguish. So I can definitely treat those with some primary colors to make that a little bit easier to comprehend. But there are two types of trails being shown here, both paved and soft. So this could be a possible outlet to find out more about your pedestrian route inventory. A lot of these dotted lines, these trail routes are following roads already, and it seems pretty obvious that most of them are likely sidewalks on the side of roadways. But it also helps you have that comprehensive understanding of, you know, how other routes and other trails from other regional areas can connect with your city. And now we have the transit map. So the data for this one came directly from Sound Transit. And what you're looking at, the yellow routes are the Sound Transit routes. And each orange little dot is a bus stop. I will note that this data set is also about 2 or 3 years old. So there could be some updates on there. You could have an additional bus stop in a couple different places that you didn't have a year or two ago. So there's room for improvement there. But the other transit route, the Intra-Valley Shuttle, that is the pink notation there along the roadways. That information was hard for me to find. I did find a previous old map, so I've drawn these in based off of a map that I believe came from 2016. So
quick question, did you talk to SVT?
No, I couldn't get in direct contact with them, so a lot of what I was searching for was basically on the internet. So that'll be another follow-up that I'll be doing.
Definitely get a hold of SVT because they cover a lot of these areas. The pink, anyway, it's just a little bit broader than you show there.
Okay, it is good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I'll be seeking that feedback from them. And the freight route. This information also is supported by a WashDOT. You do have some primary freight routes, and they're actually split into different classifications as well. You have T1, T3, T4. So that basically distinguishes the type of product or the type of commodity that's on those freight routes. So your T1, like I-90, is going to have a hazardous classification, and then each lower classification below that can move on towards commodity and goods or agriculture. Yeah, you have 3 of them there. I believe that's it for the maps. I'll hand it back to Carl. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll finish out just continuing to go over the components of what makes up a transportation element. So this slide addresses level of service. And I have here that we have traffic counts for 15 intersections and 10 roadway sections are programmed. Originally, we had there were 2 occurred finishing up yesterday, but I just found out that they're going to be next week. Right. Okay. So and they're basically the counters that you see on the, ropes, the black ropes that go across the roadway. That's what you're going to see starting next week in various parts of the city. And that will provide the data back to Petite, where we'll then do an analysis of level of service, especially at the intersections. And you might be familiar with this level of service. It's a standard protocol established by the Institute of Traffic Engineers, and it's an alphabet series. So level of service A is your best service in that you can drive anywhere you want without any congestion or any hesitation. And it's what we all would want to be when we're drivers. But, you know, reality is that level of service is more between the B to the E level and sometimes the F level. And that's what you might hear, especially if you get current planning projects and people might start talking about level of service F, and you know, and the impact that has on the ability to move about your city. So we'll be taking a look at analyzing what is happening at your intersections, but that first we have to do our traffic counts. And once we get that information, then we move into the forecast section of our work. And the Growth Management Act requires that we review the future land use growth. So that's your growth target, how it's going to result in trips. We do some modeling, we do some forecasting of how many new trips on your roadways, some assumptions on where they're going to go. And it's based on your zoning and your in the density change, any density changes in the zoning. And then we compare that to the existing level of service, came from the information from the traffic counts. And then that will result in a list of potential areas where you're having a failing level of service, or maybe a level of service E, where we need to take a look at that for the next 20 years. And from that will be a list of transportation improvements. Next slide, yeah. And so this is a nice little graphic that kind of shows how this process really is contemplated and intended under the Growth Management Act. You're going to start at the top of the triangle. That's your land use plan that drives everything. That is the cornerstone, the foundation, so to speak, of your comprehensive plan. It's going to generate, the growth is going to generate what projects, capital projects that the city council will need to fund, the public works department will need to program into their improvement schedule, and the financial plan and how you're going to pay for those transportation projects. That's going to be when you start considering your general fund. It's all under general fund. So the general fund financing, grants, federal grants, state grants, impact fees, if you're considering those or if you already have them. And so it's really a collection of many different revenue sources that will go into how you financially pay for the transportation projects. So I kind of already spoke about this, but they're going to, we must look at the needs. We develop a future transportation system needs. Again, that's going to be a section of the transportation element. We'll have a map, transportation systems map, if we can map some of those improvements. And again, we must look at pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So one of the maps that Jennifer talked about was the existing. We're going to look at key connections. We're going to look at if there's needs of sidewalks or bike paths based on city policies and preferences. And then we'll have a system needs list, and it needs to be a 20-year list for the body of the plan, for the duration of the plan. And those projects then get prioritized through the city's budget process, through the 6-year transportation improvement plan, your capital improvement plan, and through the budget process through your finance department. And again, speaking about the multi-year financing plan, we do need to show as part of the element that the anticipated project costs, we're going to have to look at potential sources for funding them. And again, 20 years for near, medium, and long-term timelines. And the city, and I did take a look at how you're currently funding your transportation projects. And so it's a combination of local taxes, fees, the grants, And then WashDOT in King County can fund and has funded, I believe, some improvements to Snoqualmie or adjacent to the city when it is a larger, more regional project. There we go. Yeah. So I've already kind of gone through all of those, although I will point out that developer contributions and mitigation fees, they can be through your SEPA, or again, if you have impact fees. Your bond financing, that's usually a way that the finance department and city councils will look at larger transportation projects. Transportation benefit district, I don't know if you have that already established, that's another way. So. And this is I think the last slide. So it's just a little graphic that walks through again the process that we're going to be taking. We're still at kind of box number 1, but we're queuing up for box number 2 and 3. Again, with our traffic counts going out next week, we'll get an analysis of the level of service. We'll take the growth target number that Emily's provided to us to do our future needs assessment. We're going to identify improvement projects for the 20-year planning horizon. And we'll then those can get prioritized through the budget process. And then what is coming up next for Petite is, again, we'll be presenting first round of goals and policies for your consideration and discussion. We're going to complete our inventory over the next 2 months of the feedback you provided to Jennifer. And if you have any other additional feedback, please feel free to provide it to Emily and she'll get it to us. We'll be using those traffic counts to begin our level of service analysis in the later, in October to December. We'll have our transportation system needs in early 2024. We'll develop the transportation system map and project list for consideration for staff and the Public Works Department, identify funding sources in coordination and collaboration with Public Works Department and the Finance Department, and then provide a complete transportation element to you. We're hoping for March. So appreciate your time and your attention. There's a lot to that. And so we're happy to answer any questions or provide any clarifications. Thank you.
I have 3 comments, and I'll make sure that everybody around table, but the Snoqualmie Valley Transportation SVT, the head of that, maybe 10 years ago presented at EDC. I mean, she really has a deep understanding of what she offers and what she thinks the Valley needs with experience. So, I mean, I would absolutely have a long conversation with SVT and what they can do.
Perfect.
Do you know her name offhand?
I was gonna look it up, so I'll look it up when we do the roundtable, because yeah, I think that would really be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely.
And second point, the SVT stands for Snoqualmie Valley Transportation, and they kind of view North Bend and Snoqualmie, I don't know if they go to Falls City, but anyway, basically as a unit. And I assume North Bend is going through a similar process. And I mean, you showed that map, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, but the other piece of that puzzle is North Bend. And so I'm curious, is there any coordination with North Bend? Because a lot of those roads, end with Snoqualmie and start with North Bend on like multiple points. So is there any communication going on with what North Bend is doing?
We haven't had any direct communication with them at this point, but definitely we can open that door. It's a good point that we need to make sure that those connections actually do connect. And yeah, we can definitely
do that. Yep.
Okay. And then a third point on biking and pedestrian, I've done the Mount Si? Anyway, I've done a half marathon. We go on the Snoqualmie Valley Trail, and to train for that, decided to run down the Fisher Creek, I think 384th, pop out Herfyburger, anyway, and run railroad. And you really need your head on a swivel if you're a pedestrian on railroad. Similarly, I heard the biking was good. So we went up Tokol, down that 396 and across the Mill Valley. Spectacular. However, you really need your head on a swivel. We did it in July, blue sky, dry pavement. And that's a shame, because there's no problem biking down the parkway, all the way to Better Way and back, because you've got bike lanes, you've got bike trails. I think you would get, I think it's a missed opportunity when it comes to transportation on biking, because it is not, you really rely on everybody being alert and attentive if you go on railroad. And I don't know if that's an intent, but I just say there's an opportunity there,
Yep.
either as a pedestrian, jogger, or as a biker. So I'd offer that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we also had a comment when we were talking about this, that if you want to spend a day in Seattle, you can't do that easily. You almost need a day and a half, because it takes you half a day just to get there. You somehow got to get to Issaquah, and if you get to Issaquah, then you can make it there. And it'd be nice if the transportation at least gets us to our metro city, right?
Right.
So all right.
The transit.
Yes, yes. So let me do a quick roundtable, because I suspect there's a lot more comments than I came up with. So Vice Chair Tessman?
Yeah, just a couple things. First, awesome introduction to what lies ahead. So appreciate that. Actually, that last point about connecting to Issaquah and all that, the Seattle Met had an article out today talking about, how is the limit of the east side defined or whatever, and it specifically says, anecdotally at least, most people think that it's where the 90 speed limit goes to 70, right? That Snoqualmie is somehow not part of the east side and disconnected and basically kind of rural East King County. Maybe some people like that, maybe some people don't, but the fact is we have about 16,000 people who are a pretty core part of the whole Puget Sound economy. So I think if there's a way, as we do our comprehensive planning on transportation, and as Sound Transit, makes further progress towards expansion to the east side, I think it's important that we have a natural barrier, which is the pass there, and if we can preserve Snoqualmie's unique character while better linking us to Issaquah, I do think that's important, including by bicycle. A lot of employers, Amazon and others, have incentives for electric bikes and the like, but it's just not realistic for an Amazonian in Snoqualmie, for example, to commute even to Bellevue, not even a Seattle-based Amazonian. But that would be awesome. That's part of our culture out here. So I do hope we focus on that as we plan. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Tessman. Let me, Commissioner Aliff?
I appreciate all the data brought together. I thought the heat map in particular around collisions was fascinating. Pretty clear patterns there and ways for us to improve safety. But I was also curious what thought we put into as we take a broader look at transportation, like destinations from people inside of the community to other places inside the community. So I can think of large destinations like the high school or potentially even the casino for employees, and how we ensure that not just cars but other modalities can effectively commute there. Because as we know, if we can locate housing near employers or schools, we can reduce a lot of our traffic demands if we can offer alternatives besides cars.
Yeah, agreed. You don't see students biking to the high school, but I bet they could. Distance-wise, they certainly could, but yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't even recommend it. Okay, Commissioner Kilcutt?
Yes, I will echo, thank you for putting this together. It's very interesting. The question that I have as I'm starting to think about these things is, and maybe you can speak to this, but the assumptions that go into our area and whether we're 2-car households or 1-car household, as well as do we incorporate any assumptions for potentially having self-driving vehicles or anything for where we're going, as well as Commissioner Aliff said, on alternatives to just a standard vehicle for transportation.
No, that's a really good question. I guess I'll respond by, there is a component of that when the forecasting is done, when the model is set up, that you do have to make some assumptions about the different modes, and they kind of call it mode split actually. So we're going to look at vehicular and then an assumption of bicycle and pedestrians. And so we haven't gotten to that point yet, but there is some thought behind that. There is some thought that goes into determining when you're ready, and you're going to start putting the assumptions into the kind of computer model, that those types of things are considered. Now, as far as like some of the self-drive vehicles, I think you mentioned, I don't know if those are getting programmed into that model yet. Well, our actual transportation engineer who will be doing that work, we have a fourth person on our team. He couldn't make it to our meeting, but he'll be doing that work. And so, we'll check in with him about new technologies and how those are being considered in the forecasting model. That's a good point.
Good. Anything else, Commissioner Coco?
Nope, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Crone?
First, thank you for the presentation. This is really thorough. I'm looking forward to the process and learning more about this. Vice Chair Tessman did a good job of expressing what I'm just looking forward to how we consider transportation as it relates to connecting to Issaquah as well as North Bend on both those sides. I think that's something that a lot of people that work remotely or some hybrid version are concerned about, and it'll be great to see how that's reflected in this.
Great. Thank you for that.
Good. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add right now. Some really good points have been brought up, especially as it relates to, as we're looking ahead to the future, trying to anticipate where technology and transportation will take us. I'm still waiting for my flying car, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah, no, I'm eager to see though what comes forth in the policies and elements that you present to us in 2 weeks.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the lovely presentation. I was personally hoping that we could get some hyperloops through the city. That might be 1,000 years off. It's a little too far in the future to plan for. So I think you kind of heard something similar from the Planning Commission. And I guess my concern could be that, there's this freeway in Texas. I think it's like 20 lanes or something like that. And they just keep saying, hey, if we just add one more lane to each side, then finally the traffic can flow freely. So I just would hope that we get better things than just, oh, well, if we just add another lane, right, that'll clear up our traffic. And I'm not expecting that that'll be the case, but that we just think about, if we had better infrastructure for bikes or pedestrians, that could be a way of alleviating traffic. Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Great. And if I can, Mr. Chair, I actually would like to respond to that because as you probably are familiar, that's exactly what Puget Sound Regional Council thinks. And so the transportation element in our list of projects and the forecast is not going to be, we're going to build our way out of congestion vehicularly. In fact, the executive director of WashDOT has actually gone on the record saying that our congestion in the I-5 corridor cannot be bought and cannot be improved by increasing capacity. So it's a variety of modes, and what PSRC has laid out in Vision 2050 is in fact the differing modes than single car occupancy, which we've been talking about for 20 years, but it's really now coming down to some reality of the state legislature added the pedestrian and bicycle component as a required component of the transportation element. PSRC is looking for transit and for those modes of getting people not in a car to transit hubs. So I do think that while I will say the element's probably not going to be, revolutionary, I do think that and you already have a great foundation for the bicycle and the pedestrian component to it. But what we heard tonight is look at transit, look at your neighboring communities. And that's in fact very reflective on what the community said through their input as well. So we're really excited to get started on that work too. And the goals and policies, as you know, we already talked about, will be here in a couple of weeks, but it's going to be looking, you already have a very solid set of goals and policies. So it's just going to be, how are we going to elevate that more to reflect what you guys talked about tonight? So thank you so much for your feedback. It's very important.
Councilmember
Yeah,
Johnson.
Thank you. I did happen to think of one other thing while you were talking there. Was some of our surrounding cities have started increasing the number of roundabouts. I'm sorry, traffic circles. Roundabouts give people a bad image in their minds. And our city, Snoqualmie, just doesn't have very many. And I'm not sure if that is because the intersections that we do have with lights are actually appropriate to that scale or not. But it's something that I've always been curious about is are we deficient in traffic circles, and is that perhaps a better way to move some of the traffic along? So that's something that I'd be interested in as well.
Okay. Well, I do want to, you've got a lot of feedback. I do want to thank you guys for putting this together. It was a great amount of information. You can kind of sense there's a bit of passion around this as well. I think we've got some things we're pretty proud of. We've got some things that look like, wow, we could really do better. So looking forward to going through this process. Okay. Anything else from you or from the commissioners? Okay. All right, then let's move on to next agenda item, items of planning commissioner interest. I will poll the commissioners and see if Vice Chair Tessman.
So I apologize. I didn't get off mute when you did that last call. The only thing I would highlight on our last topic, I don't know if this is considered in scope or not, but if the road work on the parkway and everything taught me one thing this past summer, and I understand the geographical constraints, but I hope we look at like how we provide alternative entry and exit points kind of for the valley as a whole, but certainly, I know that's out of scope, but for Snoqualmie residents, because for an emergency, I know our biggest one is likely going to be like an earthquake, right? Probably seconded by wildfire as climate change progresses, but we're really trapped in this valley here. So I don't know if that's in scope or not, but I'd like to look at that if possible. But nothing for traditional items of interest this week.
It's good feedback though. Okay. Commissioner Aliff.
Nothing for this week. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Kilcott.
Nothing further.
Commissioner Crone.
Yeah, I just have one thing. I had a chance to experience the homecoming events this past weekend at the high school. I have two daughters who are teenagers, and just wanted to sort of shout out the community, the teams and city council as well. It was really fun to be with friends from all over the valley. On one case, a totally new experience, and on the other case, someone who's been through it a few times from a teenager perspective. It was just a great, I thought, a showcase of our city and what we have to offer people. The downtown was packed. It was a bunch of laughter and fun. It was everything that we were kind of hoping our kids would experience. So home run, kudos to us.
That's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Great. Anything else, Commissioner Crone?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
No items this week. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and I also not going to bring up any items this week. So anything else from staff? Community Development Director Arteche?
No.
Okay, if that being the case, I move that we adjourn the meeting at 8:22 p.m. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
It's adjourned.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good night.